We talk about the recent Camera Plus 2 update, including showing some comparison shots. We talk about our recent photos and look a little bit in the future with a little iOS 16 crystal ball and maybe what can be holding for the iPhone 14 coming up. All that coming up on the iPhoneography podcast.
It's Monday, June 20th, and this is the iPhoneography podcast. I'm Greg McMillan, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Dave Podner. Good evening, Dave.
Hey, good evening, Greg. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm top shelf right beside the peanut butter. So as anybody who kind of follows iPhoneography might know, Camera Plus 2 came up with a pretty cool update. They've given us the ability to capture a 48 megapixel photo, and that's all done through upscaling, right? So, but the thing is they've not only given us a capture ability, but an editing ability. So you can edit in Camera Plus's edit suite, which has also been updated. You can edit and change this photo, one of your regularly captured photos that you've got in your library. You can bring it in and you can upscale it to the 48 megapixels as well. So what do you think, Dave? Do you think this is a pretty cool update?
I mean, I think it's a good upgrade. And we're going to talk about the photos, the comparison photos each of us took. And you can tell the difference if you look at the details, at least on my 13 Pro. Maybe if you're dealing with an older camera, it'll be a bigger difference than like if your camera's a year or two old, maybe even 3, you may not notice a huge difference. But also they can't do the upscaling on that old of a camera though, because they need to use the machine learning, artificial intelligence. They're not just, scaling it up because then it'll look crappy. They're saying they looked at, all these photos and figured out where you can upscale and where's the but if you don't have a newer phone with the machine learning chip in it, pretty much, it's not going to make that much of a difference because it can't do the processing. So like I said, I noticed a difference. I noticed it's slower, that you take a picture and then you can still move on, but then you see the little circle fill in as it's developing for lack
as it's building it. Yeah.
Exactly. So it is doing, and like I said, my phone's only a year old, so it's new.
Mm-hmm.
It's new. So the fact that it's taking my phone a minute or not a minute, but
it's about
5-10
it's about 7 or 8 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Seems like it anyway.
But if you have an older phone, you may notice it a lot more. And I think there's 2 big changes, or 3, I should say. The 48 megapixel artificial 48 megapixel, because it's not a true, there's no way you can physically increase the number of pixels on your phone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not 48 negative, or it's not negative, but it's not 48 native megapixels.
Right. Exactly. The user interface, which I think is a big improvement, even though they haven't really added a lot per se, but I like the user interface changes that are a lot better. And the fact that they went to a subscription model.
Yeah, that's something else that's interesting.
Yeah. Now, if you purchased Camera Plus 2 in the past, you don't have to pay for it.
Right,
because
your grandfather
did. Open it, exactly. So you can say, restore my previous purchases. It'll see that you purchased it for whatever it was before, and then boom. But if you've never used Camera Plus 2 in the past, at least in the US, the monthly plan is $399.
$399 a month?
A month. Now I'm thinking that's more of a trial period. Before you put out for the yearly or the purchase price. If you just want to give it a try for that gives you a month to play with it for $399. The yearly plan $17.99. So per month, it's not bad, but you remember you have to pay it all at once. So it's $18. That's a bit on the steep side. The purchase of $24.99 is better. I mean, if you're really sure you're going to keep it, And that's assuming there's no changes in the future, which of course you can't. But I understand why they went subscription though.
Oh yeah.
Because they literally said there's so much stress at their company saying, well, our sales, because it was a one-time sale at one time, is so much this month, and are we going to get that next month? What's our financial model going forward?
Because this is their full-time job.
Yeah, this is it. This is literally, as far as I know, this is their main product they put out.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm trying to go. Here we go. More by developer. Yeah, there's a Pro Video Camera and Macro by Camera Plus. But I'm thinking this is an old.
That Macro by Camera Plus, I think that's just their macro mode in a separate app.
Yeah.
If you've got Camera Plus, you've got it.
This year at least. Right. So, I mean, at least that was updated this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other one is the Pro Recording one. That's $8. And that was last updated February for other reasons. So at least it's something, but they really only have 3 apps, and Camera Plus is their main app.
Yeah.
So,
and it's on iPad, and I believe there's a Mac version of some sort.
Yeah, Camera Plus Studio is what they call it.
Yeah.
And that's free with in-app purchases, but that isn't as well liked it looks like. Because it's like monthly's $1, full purchase is $19, and it's just straight editing. So honestly, I don't know if I would get, if you're going for desktop editing, I would go for probably something else.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even the Photos app does a bang on job of editing, right?
Yeah.
So we've each tried it. And I'm just going to pull up your images now. Yeah. You took a couple. It looks like they're taken at work.
Yeah. This is actually the hallway on the other side of my cubicle. So they recently put up posters, kind of going down. Now, this is when I mean hallway, it's a cubicle hallway.
Yeah.
So it's not a real hall. It's just basically the backside of cubicles facing each other to paint a picture for people. So they put up different different posters that describe the different things we do as a company. Okay. So you can kind of see on each of these, it's kind of going, you have that leading line kind of going off. And
it has that Stanley Kubrick look to it.
Down at the very bottom. So both of these were done on what's considered the wide shot. So I did it in the super megapixel one for Camera Plus 2, and I did one in the the ultra wide shot for the native camera shot. Now, this being inside in an office with all those fluorescent lights means it is well lit, even though there's no lights overhead. It was a pretty bright day, and it was pretty well lit. So the one thing I did notice, and this is true with, like I said, it's the small details that you notice a little bit of a difference. If you look at each of the photos, at the very center, at the end of the hallway, there's an exit sign that's hanging. Yeah. Okay. And if you zoom in very, 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 very tight, you can actually, on the Camera Plus 2 one, read exit. Where on the built-in iPhone one, it's just kind of blurred lines. So that's kind of, putting the extreme out there, if you will. But same thing with
I see it.
Same thing with the photos on the wall. If you zoom in on the photos going down the hallway, you can actually read them, and they're pretty clear going pretty far down. This is at a pretty steep, kind of a steep angle. The kind of, again, it's kind of like a very narrow hallway. You're looking down with posters on either side. So you're not really seeing them straight on, but you may not be able to read, but you can, get a good feel for what each of these, you can actually get a feeling of the letters, and it doesn't look splotchy on the Camera Plus 2. Mm-hmm. But on the built-in iPhone one, they get a little splotchy, you lose some detail. And I know that the ultra wide is not as good as the wide. When it comes, it's just not as good as the camera part is just not as good.
Yeah.
But you can definitely tell the Camera Plus 2 does a nicer job. Now, if you're looking at the posters that are closest to you, it's hard to notice the difference there.
Right.
It is still a little bit clearer, though. So you can definitely tell it's better.
And looking at the floor, you could pretty much tell that the focusing was at pretty much the same spot too. Like it's not like one focused a little further down the hall than the other one. They both look like they're focused in the kind of in the foreground, but maybe the first poster on the left looks like it might be the focusing point. Roughly somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. That and I'm seeing a very slight difference in the color tone, like the say the white balance between these two, and that's going to be more evident in what we're going to look at here in a minute. But yeah, that's interesting. So the other shots that you tested were of these flowers outside your house. Mm-hmm. And okay, so when we so let's go to the first one.
Okay.
So that's 1437 is the file number.
Yeah, these are our hosta plants outside of our house.
Yeah.
And they're just starting to bloom right now, which is appropriate given tomorrow's the first day of summer.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so this was with which camera or which app?
Sure. This was Camera Plus using its macro feature.
Okay.
So again, it was this was taken 7:30 at night. So, and this is our house is facing west, so it was overcast. It was kind of facing the sun, so this is kind of best case lighting scenario.
Yeah.
A diffuse, not a harsh light, but very well lit still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So kind of best case scenario. But I remember just in the past, before this last update, the one reason I would pull out Camera Plus 2 was its macro feature before I got my iPhone 13.
Yeah.
That way you could do it without attachments or add-on or anything else.
Yep. And it does a pretty decent job.
Oh, yeah. No, it does a good job. I mean, you can see the individual stamen. You can actually see some of the pollen on the individual if you zoom in. But I also wanted to see, could the 48 megapixel version do almost as good as the macro? So I switched over to the macro, and to the super resolution, and it does especially, like I said, you figure with the new iPhones, if they are 48 megapixel, the output will probably be 12, but the thing they're probably going to be pushing is the ability to zoom in more, that you're not going to lose detail. So that's why I thought macro would work pretty good on here, and I think it does.
Mm-hmm.
I think it does a pretty good job on macro. Also, since it's using less computational, well, I'm saying it's using more computational, it's actually coming out to be just a brighter photo. The whites here are just brighter than either macro shots.
Yeah. So we go from the Camera Plus macro, and then we go to the it's basically the same image, but it's a separate photo of the high res version. And when the listeners look at this image on their iPhone, on their podcast app, they're going to see a zoomed in version of the image on part of the hosta flower. That's the one that's kind of hanging down at the lowest point. The white petals that are hanging down, because I find those are the sharpest ones. I think that's, for some reason, that's where the focus seemed to be nailed.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay, see it, yeah.
they're going to be able to see the difference between the regular one and the regular macro version that comes from Camera Plus. And that, that's going to be, let's see there. I want to make sure I got the right one, because what I'm doing is I'm screenshotting these when I show them, so that I'm screenshotting, or I'm opening them up in preview on my Mac, and then I'm going to view them at 100%, and then I'm going to screenshot it, and then that's what they're going to look like on the podcast app. Okay, so go to 100%, and for some reason these are looking the same at actual size.
Again, I think it's very similar. The fact that they're macro and the 48 megapixel look very similar, that kind of bodes well, because, like I said, the main idea for macro is being able to zoom in with this very small focal length. And if you can do that with,
that's why they look similar. That's why they look similar, because I forgot that the first one, you shot it in macro mode. Mm-hmm. The second one was shot as a high res, not in macro mode, right?
Right. Because you can't do both. Once you're in high res, you can only do high res. You can't do macro mode. You can't do the monument.
You can't even do raw or nothing.
No.
Okay, so that's why they look the same. So that's interesting. Okay, so now I don't feel so dumb here trying to figure out why they look the same. But and then the third one that you took,
that was taken with the macro built-in native camera app.
Right.
And like you said, like you mentioned, it's a warmer image. It's definitely a warmer image.
Yeah. That's where I noticed the color shift for some reason. Camera Plus 2 seemed to maybe, I don't know if it just shoots in a cooler tone in general, or it just, maybe it's more accurate. It's hard to say what the deal is there, but now I'm going to open this in preview and go to 100%. And again, it looks very similar to the other macro version. That's actually maybe a little bigger, but
I'll say this: when you zoom into the small details, I think the iPhone native one does a better job with its computational. With the actual stamen. I want to make sure I'm getting the correct term.
Yep.
With the yellow bits, with the yellow ends, the stamen, you can see they're a lot clearer on the iPhone version than the Camera Plus version.
Yeah.
And so I took that, and if anyone looks on my my Instagram or Twitter at Prof Pod, I took that one and did some color correction on it, because I figured it's really hard to sharpen a macro image because there's so much computational already there. It's really hard to pull out anything else, make it look kind of grainy and nasty. So I took that one, did some color corrections, up the contrast a little bit, up the vibrancy a little bit, to pop things up a little bit. And that's the one I actually posted.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
I did definitely make it cooler and made the leaves whiter. Because it is a white flower. I shouldn't say leaves, but the flower itself is white.
Yeah, the petals, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So just before we started recording tonight, I was out in my backyard playing around with some test shots as well. I did a test shot with reflex, and these were not macro shots. These were just regular, just from the wide camera. And now these flowers look like they're taking a beating from ants or something. They're clematis. They're clematis. That's what they are. So that's why there's holes in them and they're chewed up a little bit. And I don't know. We've never seemed to have good luck with them just because of the ants getting at them. But anyway, this was with a reflex camera, just auto, nothing done to it. So what I did was I put my iPhone on a tripod, and that way when I took these, they were all identical in the same spot. So the first one was done with reflex, and then the next one that you see is Camera Plus. And there's not much difference really. The Camera Plus image looks a little brighter in the background. I looked at the exposure data, and there's a very, very slight difference in the shutter speed, but I didn't think it was enough that it would, alter the brightness of the image that much. But maybe it does. I don't know. But they're pretty darn similar, to say the least. And so that's a reflex, then Camera Plus, and then I went with the Camera Plus high res. And now just looking at it, it looks very similar to the Camera Plus normal shot. And then, when I open it in preview on the Mac and go to view it at 100%, then it's literally twice the size. That's exactly what it does. It goes from 12 megapixel to 48, but that just means it's doubled its length and height, or height and width in the resolution, in the number of pixels. And it's very evident that you can see a lot more detail now because it's computationally done, with machine learning and all that stuff. It's got that, that slightly pixelated, not pixelated, but you could just tell it's been done computationally. It's not optically. So it's not like taking like a mirrorless camera and taking a shot with a 50 millimeter and then taking another shot with a 100 millimeter. It's not like that, but it really does bring it in nice. It makes it nice and big. You can probably get some pretty nice prints out of this stuff. There may be some parts of this photo that look better than others. Like if I went down to one of the petals, the texture in the petal shows up real nice. When you look at the stamen, there was a bit of a breeze, so maybe they're kind of moving in the breeze a little bit. But it does a really decent job of upscaling these images. Mm-hmm. And there's other ways that you could upscale images, right? You could do it through like Photoshop and all that stuff, but Pixelmator Pro on the Mac or even on the iPhone has a upscaling feature, but it doesn't go to 48 megapixel. It goes bigger, but not this big. At least I don't think it does. I haven't played with it in a while, but I don't know. It's a pretty good feature though. It's a really cool feature to throw into the app. And it's kind of like macro, I guess. If you want to change it to the high res or shoot it in high res and then crop in, it's basically kind of like doing a macro shot, but you get the benefit of the whole frame, everything in the frame being double the size. It's a good feature that they've thrown in. I'll say that because
yeah.
Okay, so any other comments on the high res part of it, Dave?
Not really on the high res, no. Okay. The only thing is that, like you said, there is a delay, and high res is by itself. That's the other thing to think about. You can't, if you want to do something in RAW, you can't do RAW, which makes sense because high res is using the computational photography. Anytime you do that, you really can't do a true RAW image.
That's right. Yeah.
So just the biggest thing is just knowing your limitation on what you have, using the different modes.
Yeah, that's right. There's definitely limitations. So, keep that in mind, folks. If you're going to give this a try, don't try. You can adjust the, the exposure value. I don't know what else you can adjust. Maybe you can adjust. I don't know.
Like I said,
I have
the temperature you can adjust, the exposure you can adjust. Now, the nice thing, of course, about Camera Plus is you do have separate exposure and focus ability.
Yes, that's right.
If you tap the screen, that's been there for a while. So that is a big help also. The fact that if you're like, I want to, I want to focus on the flower, but that's over bright because it's white or it's too dark. So I want my exposure somewhere part of the image. You can do that. That's a big help. That's something the built-in camera app can't do yet.
Yeah.
I don't want to say permanently because you never know.
Yeah, that's right. So it looks like the only adjustment that I can see that you can do while shooting is focus and exposure.
Yeah.
And the exposure value, like the EV. So it doesn't look like you can change white balance and all that stuff while shooting, but you can definitely do it afterwards for sure.
Right.
So, okay. So now the other change that they've made in their app is the editing suite, which is, it was pretty good before, but they seem to have, revamped it and made it a little more user-friendly, I guess.
Yeah. Especially in the, what they used to call their lab for the editing, where it used to have all the, and I don't know if they removed some additional ones, because it seems like they grouped some of the adjustments under menus. Not menus, but they grouped them there, like under light, there's exposure, brightness, contrast, highlights, and shadows. Where before, each one of those was a separate option, but to get to it, you had to click on, you had to touch it, and the touch points were exceptionally small.
Yeah.
And they made the touch points much easier to deal with.
Yeah, for sure.
And the same thing with the filters, where the filters, as far as I can tell, they're pretty much the same filters that were there before, but instead of like, you can almost tell that Camera Plus 2 came out, and it was one of the first separate camera apps that was available. So you can tell that, and you can tell that the layout design's almost iPhone 4, 4S. Like,
yeah,
from
definitely.
the apps at the time. They were like, oh, this is this filter, and this is another group of 9, this is another group of 9. And now it's just, well, here's all your filters. You just kind of scroll through all the different groups, which does work better. It does work better.
Yeah, and I'll put some screenshots of this in the podcast in the app, so that when we talk, while we're talking about this, people can kind of get an idea of how these look, and if they had the app before, or if they have the app, they'll know that there is definitely an improvement in how this looks and works for,
most definitely,
on the user side.
No, I will say the one negative, and this is a negative I had previously, is with the filter for HDR.
Oh yeah.
Just don't use it. It's horrific. A lot of those filters are good. The miniaturize and depth of field work great. You can't do a lot of adjustments, unfortunately, so your image has to be centered. But if you have a centered image, you want to make it look like a miniature, especially with the pan and the tilt. It works great. I like some like the tonals, the analog. They're I like those. But for the HDR, it looks crappy HDR.
Yeah.
It literally looks like HDR from 10 years ago, where everything's blown out and the colors are bright but washed. So
Mm-hmm.
they're very bright colors, but they're not like contrasty colors. Everything's overly sharp. The whites are actually blown out, and they're no longer white. Um, you know,
Yeah, it's a hot
uh,
mess.
it is. I mean, the other ones are great. I like their frames. They have lots of options for frames if you like that look. Both horizontal and vertical, or like a vintage frame, or it looks like an old instant camera. The grit ones I like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The mats, I like those. I like a lot of the filters, especially if I want to do something that's a little more unique. Than or if I don't want to necessarily build something out on my own, like Polar, and put 15 things together, but that HDR, just ignore it.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you want to go out and make a like crazy HDR Instagram filter and just take photos with it and put it on there, and if you want to use that as a style, that's different. But don't expect you're going to get this image is, the shadows are a little too dark and it's a little overblown. This HDR will fix it. Unfortunately, it won't.
Yeah.
That's really the only negative I've ever had about Camera Plus 2 is that HDR filter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other filters are fine. I think they had a nice little touch if you want to put a mood on a photo.
Yep.
It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's right. Something else I noticed, and I don't know if it was in the edit suite before, is when you're not in a raw edit, but just in a normal edit, at the top, there's a little, looks like a wizard's hat, which would be like the magic wand tool in Photos. So, that gives you a bit of a starting point for everything by, you hit that and it does some adjustments for you. And it adjusts. I can see where it's in this particular one image I'm looking at, it increased the exposure a wee bit, dropped the contrast a little bit, highlights and shadows have brought them down. And it's going to be different for every photo, I think, because it's obviously it'll be an AI thing, right? So do you know if it had that before?
It did have an auto feature.
Okay.
It wasn't considered magic, but it was like an auto feature. So, I think
I haven't.
Closest they would have.
I haven't read up too closely on the features and all the new stuff that's been upgraded, but I wouldn't be surprised if they've done a little better job with that particular feature right there.
Yeah.
The auto enhance, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And I think that's chances a lot of machine learning too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, well, it's a good update. And if it is an app that you find you want to use a lot, you know what? I would take the plunge and just buy it outright rather than do any subscription. Like Dave, like you said earlier, Dave, subscribe for a month, see if you like it. If it's not your thing, you can always cancel it. But if you find you really like it and you're going to use it a lot, if not all the time, I would get out of that subscription model and just buy it outright. It's only, what'd you say, $24?
$24, yeah, $24.99 to purchase.
$24.99 US. It would be a well worth investment, and then you don't have to worry about you'll get upgrades and all that stuff in the future. You won't have to worry about. You see, I bought it quite some time ago. I don't know how many years ago. I paid the full price for everything, and they bring out a whole new version, and everything gets grandfathered to me. I don't have to pay anymore. I get it all. So that's a benefit of paying the full price of it. So by all means, check it out. They've got a good website. We'll put a link to that in the show notes that shows a lot of these features too. So give it a look and see if it tickles your fancy any. So that's Camera Plus 2. Well, actually, you know what? I think they're calling it Camera Plus 22.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure in the write-up it said Camera Plus 22. I guess it's because it's 2022, and I would have thought it would be Camera Plus 2.2, but I'm pretty sure I saw Camera Plus 22 somewhere. So that was interesting.
well, I'm just showing it as yeah. Welcome to the Camera Plus 2.2 exclamation point.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's and it says Camera Plus Pro Camera and Editor.
Mm-hmm.
And it is because there's another Camera Plus out there.
Yeah.
And so you got to be.
They have the legacy. They have their legacy app, Camera Plus. I don't know if you can even get it anymore, but I know I have it on my phone. It's not downloaded on the phone, but it's there, and it's got that little download icon. But there's also one called Camera Plus with the word plus.
Right. So that's what you got to be careful, because there's another Camera Plus free with color effects.
Oh,
so,
is there?
Yeah. So, and you're right. It's still there. Camera Plus Legacy is still there. And that is the original.
Oh, okay.
But you want to make sure you get the one from Late Night Soft if you're interested.
Yeah, that's right.
Because that is the company name.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll link the website and the app itself actually in the show notes so that people get the right one if they want to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's Camera Plus 2. So now we are going to take a quick look at some of our recent photos.
Yep.
And Dave, you just keep knocking these out of the park. I saw on Facebook the other night you were looking at some really cool clouds above your house or above your neighborhood.
It was the entire city. The entire city just went crazy because of these clouds.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So folks, look on your phone and have a look at this photo of these really cool clouds. And this doesn't do them any justice, because if you had to be there when Dave did a quick Facebook Live and he was showing these things and he was kind of panning around, and man, it was really neat.
Yeah, this was, and like I said, it was the entire Pittsburgh area. It was absolutely hilarious that everyone's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter just exploded with like, oh my God, you have to go outside and look at these clouds. This is amazing. Yeah. And they are called, let me make sure here. And I don't know how to pronounce this. Mantis, I guess. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
MAMMATUS. And it was right at sunset. And I mean, the reason I went outside, I just noticed through the window you had this golden glow everywhere. And I'm like, okay, the glow was just, it just really doesn't happen that often around. And go out and you see these clouds and they don't look real. They literally look like something out of a movie, because the part, at least in the photo, that looks puffy were actually like points going down from the cloud. Kind of like they look like they were hanging from the cloud. Yeah. And that's how they looked. I mean, literally, that's what they look like when you look at them in the sky. They just kind of look like they were all hanging down from the clouds.
It's almost like they're upside down.
Mm-hmm. That's how it felt like. And then you had the color, because if you notice, right on the horizon, there's blue. So it was clear. So you had the glow of the sunset coming right at that really sharp angle, because this was 9:00 at night I took this. Yeah. So you almost had two different cloud formations happening at the same time. And it was just kind of, it just, what I did is I went to the my hill up in the back of the house, because I looked over my house and look directly west. And that's where I got this picture from.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's just the colors and the weird points going down. And now the funny thing is, when I was looking to get the exact name of the clouds, I just typed into Google Pittsburgh clouds.
Oh, really?
And they did come up, but also the auto complete was, why is Pittsburgh so cloudy? Is Pittsburgh the cloudiest city in the U.S.? How cloudy is it in Pittsburgh all the time? So it's like, gee, thanks.
Well, I can assure you, we have plenty of clouds here too.
Oh yeah,
I think we have more cloudy days than we have sunny days, but I have never seen anything like that before, and that is so cool.
First time I've ever seen that.
Yeah,
it was just completely mind blowing. And like I said, literally everyone went out and everyone was posting photos left and right. And then I put together on Instagram, on Reels, I put together a slideshow with the different photos I took too.
Well, check out Prof Pod on Instagram and go to his Reels and have a look at these images, because it was really fantastic. And when you went on live there, that was really cool. It was so neat to see it live. It was just unreal.
Oh, yeah.
Now I missed the actual live, but I was on. I think maybe 20 minutes after you quit recording. I think that's when I picked it up. But yeah, it was pretty cool. So that's Dave's clouds.
Yeah.
So now we go to an architectural shot, which is really cool. Yeah. And I'm going to guess this is with the ultra wide.
Yes, most definitely. Just walking around, and I just happened to look up because it was just really, it's really sunny, but the way the reflection of the windows that are on the right side hit the left side of the building gave you that streak, the light streaks. Yeah. And I did this was edited where the sky, I made it more of a turquoise sky. In polar. So
but it works.
That in terms of the color of the glass, the color of the the stone and the metal part of the building. And I just happened to look up, and it's like, okay, this is just the way the angles all came together.
Yeah.
And I was able to get close enough to the building itself. Because I know a lot of times, depending on how the building's set up, it's really hard to get close to a building per se.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Depending on how they have it set up, it was like, you know what? This works perfectly. This just works perfectly how it's set up here. So I just looked up and said, I just love that angle right there. And afterwards I went in and I did some adjustment on the actual photo itself. But yeah, so this was, I don't know, honestly, I don't know what building this was, to be honest. I know it was in Oakland, but other than that, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just love the way the whole look came to it too.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like the reflections, from when the sun hits those panes of glass, and then they reflect down onto the other side. It's at the angle that they come down on as well. It really adds a lot of pizzazz to it, and I love what you did with the sky. And you know what amazes me about the iPhone camera, especially the ultra wide, is you can see a little shrub at the bottom. So that's ground level. And then you could see all the way up to the top, and it looks like it's what, it's about an 11 or 12 story building. And you could see right up to the or the rooftop, or like right up to the roof, and then the sky. And you could see it all, and it's very sharp. It's nice and sharp and clear all the way from the ground right up to the top to where the roof is. And that's a real testament of the depth of field that camera can capture. That's really cool. And this is another artistic sculpture in your fair city that is really cool as well.
Yeah, it's good. Now, the original one, this is a copy of the original. It was called Walking to the Sky. The original was installed at Rockefeller Center in New York, and it was moved to the Sculpture Center in Dallas, the original. There's a copy this is Carnegie Mellon University's campus. And there's another copy in Korea, in Seoul, South Korea.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So, I'm going off the Wikipedia entry here. It was a gift from a trustee. A lot of people did not like it, to be honest.
Really?
Yes. Just because it's a giant, it kind of sticks up. Which, anytime you do something different, people are going to like, oh, that's stupid looking. I don't understand this,
Yeah.
But yeah, if you notice, it's a pretty tall structure, and it's kind of neat because you have the different figures of people walking up the pole itself as it's going up and up. And the two people at the bottom, they're also part of the sculpture.
Yeah. I thought that might have been the case there.
Yeah. So they're not just people actually looking up, but the whole thing's part of the sculpture.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a neat look that you can kind of get.
Yeah, I like it. We just don't have stuff like that around here where I live. Like we have, the odd sculpture or art piece of them, but nothing like this. Like nothing that's this looks like it might be, I don't know what, 3 stories high. Close to it,
something like that. Yeah. Because he knows the trees. I would say maybe 3 stories.
Yeah, at least 3 stories. Yeah. So and when you look at that, I mean, you wonder how far into the ground must that have to go to hold it up, right?
It's actually 100 feet tall.
Oh, really?
Yeah. 75-degree angle, 100 feet tall, and weighs 7 tons.
Wow.
Yeah,
so it'll be well anchored.
It's actually 10-story tall.
Yeah. So those, the figures, the people, they must
they're life size. Yeah.
They're life size?
Well,
okay. Well, I mean, they must get bigger as they go up then, because it doesn't look like they're.
But the people
really
on the
small.
ground are life size. Yeah, the people on the life size. People on the ground are definitely life size.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's just another cool piece right there. That's nice capture of it, and it looks like it's a brushed metal of some sort. Mm-hmm. It's got some nice reflections on it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, very cool. So
thank you, Ray.
My 3 are from a recent local camera club outing that we did. Mm-hmm. And these members of the club, they have a nice, wonderful series of gardens on their property, and they invited us out to take pictures of all their flowers and stuff. And I think their specialty is peonies, because they had a lot of those, but they had other things. They had, I really don't know my flowers very well, but they had, they had some roses and I don't know, other ones. But I had to rely on the lookup feature on my iPhone to tell me what these were. Mm-hmm. But the first one, it's a white peony, and I shot it in portrait mode. I brought out the Old Faithful for this one, halide, and so I waited till the breeze stopped blowing, and that way I can make sure that it's going to get the stem and everything else without making them disappear on me. And then I just shot it, but as well, like it's kind of like backlit from the sun. And when I did the edit on this, I used the brilliance in photos. I used the brilliance slider to kind of lighten up the shadows on my side of the flower because it's backlit. And it just it's a great tool for balancing out the lighting in a photo.
Mhm.
And then the rest was just the a little bit of saturation and whatnot. I think I used the definition slider a little bit and give it a slight vignette. I think that was about it. So there's so many peonies out there that a lot of the pictures I took were kind of the same type of flower. So that's why I wanted to try this in depth mode in halide, just to try something different with it. So I wanted to make sure it was something that was well separated from the background. So it's got a nice bokeh in the background. And so that's my white peony. The next one is, I think it's some kind of a rose. It's a pink flower, and I softened this up with the Glamour Glow feature in Snapseed. A really cool tool to use for softening an image. You could see that the edges of the petals, this was a macro shot, of course, too, with probably the reflex long range macro. But the edges of some of the petals in the foreground are sharp. You can see the nice sharp edges of them, but then everything gets soft, especially as it goes back. Mm-hmm. And I thought this was a perfect candidate for Glamour Glow, being backlit again from the sun, and it just really softens and makes things look ethereal, or whatever that mood is. That so that was a Snapseed edit, and I don't think I've even cropped this. It's a full frame image, so
oh wow,
yeah, kind of fun to play with.
Detail in that too.
Yeah. Oh man, it was so fun out there. I was only going to stay an hour, and I was 2 hours at least at this place. So they have a lot of fantastic gardens. This third one is a peony, and this one was with I think it might have been the Struman Optics macro lens, just to get a little closer. What struck me about this was, and it was maybe just the way it was kind of in the sun, is the edges of these stamen. It was almost like somebody was trying to make a margarita with this flower, and they were dipping them in salt. Yeah, that's what it kind of reminded me of.
There's a jewel-like crystal, crushed crystal look to it.
Yeah, and it's amazing that that's just the way they are. That's just their natural look. So I mean, this was, it might have been. I think I might have hit the magic wand in photos with this one, and then just left it at that. I tried to put a vignette on it, but I didn't like how it darkened down the right edge too much. So I left the vignette off of it, and it's just a nice, bright, brilliant flower, and it's those, like you say, those jewel type of look on the end of the stamen that really caught my eye when I was shooting it. So so that's my recent photos. Don't think I have much else other than a couple of snapshots down by the harbor, but they're not as good as this one, that's for sure. So I guess that's it for the show. Camera Plus 2, big update. I'm if the next iPhone comes out with a 48 megapixel sensor, that's probably gonna, what's the term, Sherlock Camera Plus 2's feature. They're saying iOS 16 Sherlocked a whole ton of different apps when it was announced.
Well, yeah, they did a lot of things where, and the same thing, not only photography related, but same thing with the watch.
Yeah.
Same thing with the watch, especially now. I'm curious to see how far some of these features go back. Because I know that the Watch 3 is no longer supported.
Right.
So I want to see how far back they go with the support to see if like the Watch 2 or Watch 4, which is what I have.
That's what I have too. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm really curious because the watch, there's some new running features where they're giving you a lot of data that a lot of these apps you had to pay for in the past that they're doing now free. Especially like the different zones that depends on your heart rate. Because it's basically it's your age, and I have no idea how legitimate the thing is. It's 220 minus your age, and then percentages depending on, if you like zone 5 is an out and out sprint that your tongue's hanging out of your mouth and you're barely hanging on, you're foaming at the mouth type thing.
Yeah.
And like 1 is a slow jog, and they just kind of break it up in between. They say, well, some training you want to do mid, some lower. So I'm kind of see how far back it goes on the watch. If they say, well, you need an Apple Watch 5 or 6, and you can't use a 4, and it'd be like,
yeah. But, and the same goes with some of the stuff in iOS. Like it'd be interesting. Like you and I will be fine with our 12 and 13 Pro Maxes, but it's when people, it's I find the 10. Well, iOS 16 is only going to be compatible back to the iPhone 8, and then and the iPhone SE. I think that came out around that time. But it'll be interesting to see what features are only going to be good for, say, the 10 and above. The 10 and the 8 come out at the same time, so they should be.
The 10 and 8 were the exact. Yeah, actually, the 10 and 8 are the exact same phone internally. Just a matter of Face ID versus the fingerprint.
But things changed when the 11 came out because
the 11's the big change. So
because just the way the chipset worked, like it took little chunks of this chip and to do certain functions, and the rest of it didn't have to. That's the battery life increased greatly at that time. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Just real quick, have you heard of any rumors about WWDC came out, and we talked about it on the last show that sometimes you can hear things in the betas of iOS 16 that might kind of give you an idea of what the next iPhone is going to be like. Have you heard anything?
Not really.
No, I haven't either, really.
I honestly and I think last year Apple didn't get pinched with the chip shortage. I think they're getting pinched this year. That's why, really? just because there's physical limitations on what you can and cannot produce in terms of the amount of volume Apple needs. So this is going to be a year where, like, the difference between Ruth's non-Pro and my Pro is like RAW and the zoom. Yeah. Other than that, if you got the Pro, you got the 13 Pro non-Max, and you got the 13. Other than like I said, the RAW, the cinematic, not the cinematic, but the ProRes, which
in the video,
not many people are using that, but the big difference is like the Pro on the Pro and the zoom. But other than that, there's not a lot of difference. If the rumors are going to be true, there's going to be a lot of difference between the Pro and non-Pro version for the 14.
Yeah,
a lot.
And I think the only thing that I could say comfortably is that they're going to have a 14 Max, a 14 Pro, and a 14 Pro Max. So they're making a bigger size phone where you don't have to pay the money for the Pro version, but you can still have a bigger phone. So in the 14 Max. And it'll be
interesting to see if they push up the cost of the Pro and the Pro Maxes even more, though.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
And of course, don't forget, as much as, even though we're 3 months away from the iPhone 14, the rumors for 15 are out already.
Oh, I know. Yeah, they've been kind of talking about the 15
with the periscope.
Even earlier this year, there was some mumblings about it. Gosh, I think it's too early to be talking about the 15. But, people like Ming-Chi Kuo, who is an analyst who doesn't rely on the supply chain, but he just analyzes the data that he gathers in the years to come up with his ideas. I don't know. Maybe he knows something we don't. Obviously, he must, but it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see and hear what they come up with.
We all know that the 14 design is already put in. There's not going.
They're actually starting to make them.
Just because of production and everything that has to go with it, and the fact that so many of the machines that make the phones are designed by Apple.
Yeah.
Apple, and this is something a lot of people don't realize, is that Apple is not going to these manufacturers and say, here's what the phone should look like, go do it. They're saying, okay, here's the machine that we're buying that we will lease to you, like you can use to build our phones, but we're building and designing the machine to actually make the phone in the first place. So you have to be so far ahead to, you figure you have to know what the phone's going to do so you can design the machine to make the phone in the first place, because you're not just using off-the-shelf components. So,
I heard that when Steve Jobs died, there were like 5 versions of different products on the table that they were working on. For example, say 5 generations of iPhone would be sitting on the table, being worked on and being developed when he passed away. So they have to be, that far ahead to, and they obviously they're not going to be the final versions by any means, because they're keeping an eye on the competitors, just like any company would. And when, say, Samsung brought out that 103 megapixel camera, you can bet your sweet patootie somebody from Apple went and bought one and brought it back, and they tore that thing apart right down to the pixel to find out what was in it. And that's why I think the 48 megapixel rumor could be pretty true. Yeah. So it'll be interesting.
Oh yeah.
Alrighty. Well, we'll dig into more iOS 16 stuff when I can get the beta on my phone. Hopefully by the next show, that'll be available as a public release. And but as soon as it is, I'll be putting it on and playing around with it. I've seen people on Twitter playing around with things, and there are some bugs and stuff like that, obviously, but that's going to happen in a beta. But hopefully by the time the public beta comes out, they'll have a lot of those resolved. Some of the things I've seen are pretty minor, but and wouldn't take much to fix. But so, all right, Dave. Well, we'll call it at that, and let everybody know where they can find you.
Sure, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram as ProfPod. If you're on the TikToks, as the young kid, hello, fellow children, get on there. I'm ProfPod PGH. And on the iPhoneography Facebook group is Dave Podner Jr.
All right. You can find me on Instagram at Macmillan Photo, Twitter, Macmillan_photo, on Glass as just Greg. I was lucky enough to get my first name there. I'm also on the iPhoneography Podcast Facebook group, and look for both Dave and I over in the iPhone Photo Team as well at iPhonePhotoTeam.com. A great community, just like the Facebook group is. And oh gosh, I don't know how many people are in the Facebook group, but it's probably it's got to be. Is it pushing 3,000 or is it over 3,000?
I don't know offhand. I can try doing a quick look up while you're finishing up. We're actually, it says 2,400.
Yeah. And you know what? 24. Only just a few short months ago, it was just over 2,000. Right. So it's continually growing, which is nice to see. The iPhone Photo Team, it's only been going since maybe March, and they've already got over 600 members. So it's growing nicely too. So both places are great resources for learning and and seeing other people's pictures and stuff like that. So give them a look. We'll have links in the show notes. And well, Dave, I guess we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds great. Have a good one, everyone.
All right. Take care.